Don and Barbara Rickles were in Miami. Don was playing in Miami, and she had a lot of jewelry, which he used to talk about a lot in the end. And their hotel room was robbed, and it was like $100-something thousand worth of stuff that was stolen. And they saw Mr. Sinatra that evening for dinner, and she was very upset. He said, "What's the matter, Barbara?" He told her, "George, they were robbed." He said, where are you staying?" He's told him, and she said, "I'll take care of it." And he gets up and leaves. He's back 5 minutes later. And anyway, Don does his show. They have a drink. They go back to the hotel. All of her jewelry was back in the safe.
Whoa. Whoa. Good story.
Yeah, that's true. You don't fuck with Sinatra.
No.
Please join me in welcoming our guests tonight, the director of Animal House, John Landis. Babs Jansen herself, actress Martha Smith. Next up, we've got the Universal Studio executive who championed this film and willed it into existence, Sean Daniel. And finally, you know this next gentleman is an award-nominated screenwriter of so many great films like Age of Innocence, Strange Days, Gangs of New York. But he's here tonight, like all of us, to pay tribute to Verna Bloom, to whom he was married for over 40 years, Mr. Jay Cox.
Quick, take out your iPhone and go to the IMDb and look up Jay's credits. He's written some of your favorite movies.
Indeed. Well, Jay, I think I want to start with you because this is a tribute to Verna Bloom, and I was wondering if you could maybe give us a little bit of context for this in terms of her career at the time, because she was kind of known for serious movies like Medium Cool, Hired Hand, High Plains Drifter, things like that. This seems to me like it would have at that point been kind of a departure for her doing a comedy, was it? What was?
Well, you have to talk to my friend to the left here. He was the guy who saw this in her. The great thing about Verna was she had a tremendous sense of fun, but she didn't have a great sense of humor. In that she never got the joke. Everything was really real to Verna, which is one reason why I think she's so funny in this. And when Verna went for her interview for the movie, John had called her in. We'd just come from having lunch, and on her way over the hill to Universal from the Beverly Hills Hotel, she got violently ill. She walked into John's office, this is the story she told me, and said, "Oh God, I don't feel good. Can I put my legs up? This is really terrible. And I don't know, what is it about this movie? What do you guys want to do with me?" And John said, "Well, this is what this is." And she said, "Well, do you want me to read something?" He said, "No, you got it." And she loved him from that day on. And I loved it because of that. I would call her up when she was making the movie. This was a very unusual experience for her. He saw this quality in her that no one else had ever brought out before professionally. And I
She's pretty funny in The Last Temptation of Christ.
Yeah. So I would call
my
her,
line,
and I'd say, "You having fun out there, honey?" And I hear this music in the background and laughing and kids, and you could practically smell the reefer coming through. And I said, maybe I better come out there. And she said, no, don't come out, don't come out. But we did the movie, she did the movie, and we were at our cousin's house, and he had seen a screening of it, the first public screening.
I saw it at the Peachtree in Atlanta.
awesome.
And he had said the place just went up for grabs, and Verna said, "Oh, really?" Because she thought of this basically as being a high point experience. She didn't know what the movie was going to be. And when she saw the movie, we were all just absolutely knocked out. I'm only sorry that she never did anything like this on film again. She did a long run on Broadway in Brighton Beach Memoirs, but that was a different kind of comedy. This was a really knockabout exercise that really appealed to what was basically our anarchist Earth.
Well, John, how did you know she would be right for it? I mean, had you been a fan of hers from stuff like Medium Cool and all that?
From Medium Cool. I loved Medium Cool. And she's so beautiful in that. And it just, you know, my original idea for Mrs. Wormer was Kim Novak. And Ned Tannen, who was the president of production at Universal, he said,
no fucking way.
Yeah. Which is what he said to most of my ideas. So we were thinking of people to play this part, and I had just cast John Vernon, so I knew I needed someone just of equal strength. Ned was not happy about that either.
Ned was not happy about anything. But to Ned Tannen's credit, he, in the end, backed the movie. He hated all of John's casting ideas. He melted down so regularly, but he totally, in the end, said, go make the movie.
What happened was my original idea for Dean Wormer was Jack Webb. Was on the lot producing at 12 and something else, and I had a lunch with him. He smoked 11,000 cigarettes in the hour I was with him, and he also this has only happened to me twice with Jack Webb and Frank Price, where I go into an office and they put the 2 glasses on the table and pour the bourbon. Here, kid. But Jack Webb hated me. I had long hair. He hated me. But he also was baffled that I wanted him in the movies. I don't know why. Anyway, Outlaw Josie Wales had come out. And John Vernon, one of the bad guys, and he's got those blue eyes and he had a black beard. And he has a line in it where he says, "Don't piss down my leg and tell me it's raining." Which is a total Dean Wormer line. The time has come for someone to put their foot down, and that foot is me. So I thought John Vernon, so I called him in, and I was delighted with him, and he was delighted also to be offered a comedy. His first movie in LA was Point Blank. And then Topaz, he was Castro for Hitchcock. He started being bad guy on Mission Impossible, every weekly whatever TV series. So Ned hated that I had cast him, and I thought I needed someone, so I'm looking at people, and I said to Jackie Birch, I said, what about Verna Bloom? Is she in New York? Where is she? So I wanted to meet her. And when she came in, she was charming and funny, and I knew what a good actress. Have you ever seen, which is the Eastwood one?
High Plains Drifter.
High Plains Drifter. I mean, she's very different than she is in this. But I also have a theory that good actors do comedy the best. And you'll notice that most comedians can be pretty good straight actors, but a lot of straight actors have difficulty with comedy because they're trying to be funny instead of trying to be real. And Verna just played it. She went for it.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw that wig. I mean, she went. Or like Martha's hair. That's Martha's hair. That was her real hair. They did that.
1 hour, everyone.
I like Martha and Mary Louise. What the hell was her name? Mary Louise.
Mandy, honey.
Mandy. They would come on set and they were like my Barbies. Can you get their hair bigger? But anyway, Verna just went for it. And she loved that, seeing this, she loved that mink.
Yeah.
And it was cold.
Yeah.
And she was very happy. The last day of shooting, in fact, I think the last shot.
It snowed.
It snowed, but you know what the shot is?
Which one?
It's you going off the float and her pulling your dress off.
Oh, yeah, it was snowing on the floor. I remember that. Yeah.
It snowed the last day. And the only other thing I have to say is Cottage Grove which is the town where the parade is where Buster Keaton shot the general. And then later Rob Reiner did, come on, Stephen King, what's it called? Stand By Me there. And Robert Aldrich did Emperor of the North there. A lot of good movies to make there.
And we got made up in the National Guard Armory shooting range there in Cottage Grove. That was our makeup, hair, dressing room. Remember?
I don't remember.
You were out.
We had, I was very lucky. The first week I really disliked this guy, but he turned out to save me. And I was very lucky to have him. The studio assigned to me people. I was able to get my sound mixer and certain things, but the studio assigned me the AD, Cliff Coleman. And Cliff Coleman was like...
I was the studio.
Yeah, you didn't assign me Cliff Coleman.
I believe I did. The production guys, who were a whole lot older than me, said, use Cliff Coleman.
Cliff Coleman his father was an AD in the Silence. And Cliff was a real shit-kicking cowboy. And he was like 6'4", and he had that great mustache. And you know the statue of Emil Faber? That's Cliff Coleman. He said, what do you want Emil Faber to look like? I said, well, I look like Cliff Coleman. Give him mutton chops. And Cliff was the AD on The Wild Bunch and worked with Peck and Paw quite a bit, which was not easy.
But very good training for animal acting.
He used to tell us, Cliff would quote Sam Peckinpah. This is politically incorrect.
No kidding.
But when we get stuff to set up, I was worried about eyelines or something. And he'd go, you know what Sam would say? No, Cliff, what would Sam say? Continuity's for faggots. But anyway, but he was incredibly helpful to me on the film. I gotta tell you, the AD, the first AD is the one who actually runs the set. I mean, the director is the boss, but he doesn't run the set. He's not the floor guy. The AD is responsible. The AD says roll it. The AD is in charge. And he gave me really good advice a lot. And that parade, they had a radio promotion, and we gave away a car and some TVs. And they said, come out and see Saturday Night Live's John Belushi, And it was, I think they were supposed to be ready at 9, be there at some. So we got about 1,000, maybe 1,200, 1,500 people show up for free. And then we had 300 of our paid extras. And Cliff said, okay, because I gave him my shot list, and he said, no. What do you mean, no? We'll shoot those tomorrow. And he said, shoot anything that has a lot of people first, because you're going to lose most of these people by noon. Because it was freezing cold. And the big crowd stuff was done by 10:15, and it was really true. At 10:30, it was And so you see these big shots, but they're always cut in with these tight shots with 300 people. He also gave me something which I've done in many, many movies since, which is if you have a small amount of people but you need a big crowd, you put the camera here and you just give people which direction to run in circles around the camera. So they're running like that, and it's like thousands of people.
Well, Martha, I want to get back around to casting and ask you about your casting process and where you were at in your career when you got the part in this, because obviously, Verna Bloom, John Vernon, sounds like just got offered the parts. Did you have to go through?
You had to have Vern in your name to get into this. I really did. No, I was actually called for the role of Mandy first. And I read for Mandy, and then I read the script, and I really liked that. I found it really funny, and I just liked him in that Southern girl thing, that exaggerated, never existing in any state accent nobody's ever heard before. So I went back for Babs, and I got Babs. And at the time, I had also auditioned for General Hospital, so it was between these two projects. And I really wanted to get a soap opera so bad. I was new in town, and I thought, oh, this thing's gonna go to video. That's what we called it in those days, video. It was these little square things you could. And then I thought, oh, I'm going to make this General Hospital. And then I got out of the hospital, didn't get General Hospital, and the rest, here we are.
What would you have done if you got both?
Both?
And you only could do one.
I couldn't even Skype it in, could I, in those days? I'd had to make a decision.
I was very excited when I found out that Mel Blanc was her father.
Man of a Thousand Voices. Ooh. Yeah, and I was Petunia Pig. You didn't know that?
No.
Did you?
No way.
No, and I never would have guessed.
No, nobody knows. That's my secret little resume number. Briefly, Petunia Pig was not a big character. It was Porky's wife.
But back to Verna Bloom.
Yes.
But seriously, one of the things, the reason I'm very disappointed, the idea was to be a double feature with Medium Cool, which if you haven't seen it, is a very important American movie. And Robert Forster and Verna, and it was shot during the Chicago, the Democratic Convention, the 68 convention, where there were what are called police riots, which is actually what happened, where they attacked the crowd demonstrators, and it was very violent and bloody and horrific. And they're shooting, and they were shooting, Haskell Wexler, who directed it and shot it, they were actually shooting in the crowds around the convention center, and they were down there in the chaos, and it's frightening. I mean, because it's an extraordinary piece of work, and there's a moment in it that's as really special to me as any moment in film, which is you're deeply involved in this drama with Robert Forster and Verna. All of a sudden, you hear it's the assistant cameraman because Haskell's something, and they just left it in. Which is their people are being beaten to the ground, and it's really horrible what's going on. It's really violent, and then you hear, Haskell, look out, it's real! Because it's not his stunt guys, it's the Chicago police. But it's a great film, and Verna's so good at it. Has nothing to do with this character.
Yeah, she was in the riots. I mean, he shot her in the riots. The riots went on for 3 days. And after the first day, Haskell, who could really push you, refused to let her go out in the riots, and she had a big fight with him, and she prevailed. And she went back for the next 2 days of that. She never forgot that. She said the sight of tanks in the streets of an American city coming at protesters was something that she never forgotten, because something she never expected to see.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God she didn't live to see today.
Right. Yeah.
And the story about Verna Bloom that I want to tell is just that, and it involves Jay.
Am I going to get upset? No.
No, you're not. So, as John said, we fought for her as Marion Wormer, and it was a magnificent performance. And then 28 years later, I was an executive at Universal for many years, and I was the executive in charge of Animal House, and I was the executive on The Last Temptation of Christ. And exactly. So, and so I had the occasion of being at a screening, which Jay was at, of Last Temptation of Christ, and Verna and I had this wonderful exchange where it was like, yeah, I was Marion Wormer, and 28 years later, I'm Mary, Mother of Jesus. And she nailed both of them.
The Virgin Mary.
And it was just, what can I say? Not everyone can link those two experiences, those two movies, those two performances, but Verna could.
Wow.
Also, her leading men, you get weird. I mean, like Frank Sinatra. What was that?
That was a two-part, upset anyway, telling the story. This was a very good two-part TV movie, cop movie. It was supposed to be Mr. Sinatra's return to film. A very good TV director named Willie Graham directed it. And part of it was shot on location in New York on Cherry Street. It was a very good cop mob picture. And it was shot during the blackout of 1977. We were living here at the time. And we went back and we were having dinner in the Oyster Bar at Grand Central Station. And all the lights went out all over the city. So me, Mr. Romantic, said, let's walk over to Times Square. You'll never see Broadway with the lights off again. So we walk over, we promptly get mugged. I hear, the throngs all around, and unlike the fairy tale story of the first New York blackout in the 60s, this was gangs in New York. I got pushed from the back, it was pitch black. I heard Verna scream. I started swinging and I hit somebody and somebody hit me, and she was yelling because somebody stole her purse. We got carted off to the hospital. The city was a nightmare, glass falling all around. Finally, we went home, got a little sleep. The next night was Mr. Sinatra's birthday. And we went to a very small dinner at an Italian restaurant that he liked on the east side. It's only about 12 or 14 people, and the producer, I was sitting right across from Verna and I, and she said, did you see what happened to Verna and Jay? And he said, well, what's going on? So we told him the story about the blackout. We went on, had a very nice meal, lots of fun. He was terrific to Verna. And despite what you've heard of him, was very solicitous of her. She just had a miscarriage and she was very fragile. And she always believed he knew that. And he stuck around for all her close-ups, would talk to her between takes, really keeping her going. Anyway, at the end of this dinner, when we were sitting there kind of battered, the producer came over and said, I'm very glad to see you in the next room. Oh, okay. So we go in and he says to us, he said, listen, would you recognize the people who did this to you? Because if you would, there are people in this room who would take care of you. And I understood the power of that whole way of life instantly, because you know what? To my shame, I would have taken him up on it if I had known those guys. But it was an offer, it was a mark. I took it as a mark of great affection and respect to her, which is what it was.
No, I know a similar story, not different, but Don and Barbara Rickles were in Miami. Don was playing in Miami, and she had a lot of jewelry, which he used to talk about a lot, Leanne. And their hotel room was robbed, and it was like $100-something thousand worth of stuff that was stolen. And they saw Mr. Sinatra that evening for dinner, and she was very upset. He said, what's the matter, Barbara? He told her the jewelry, they were robbed. He said, where are you staying? He's told him, and she said, I'll take care of it. And he gets up and leaves. He's back 5 minutes later. And anyway, Don does his show. They have a drink. They go back to the hotel. All of her jewelry was back in the safe.
Whoa. Whoa. Good story.
Yeah, that's true. You don't fuck with Sinatra.
No.
Well, I want to open up to the audience for questions because I'm sure there are some out here. I'll go way back there and we'll start in the back.
Yeah. Could you talk about Belushi? Because he does such a great job. How did you cast him? And were you satisfied with his performances?
No, I tried to cut him out of the film.
Did everybody get the question?
The screenplay of Animals is written by Doug Kenny, Harold Ramis, and Chris Miller from the National Lampoon. And Harold Ramis knew John from Second City in Chicago, and then also from the Lampoon. The National Lampoon Radio Hour, I don't know if you know that, but John Belushi was the director and producer of that first year. In any case, so they knew John, and in fact, when the script was written, two things. It's based on a real fraternity at Dartmouth. It was Chris Miller's fraternity. Do you know their names? I don't know. The frat house has since burned down, and they've been banned from campus. They're expelled. In any case, and Bluto, Otter, Pinto, Flounder, they're all based on real people. That Chris was Pinto, as there was a scene in the script I immediately took out, which was, we discover why his name is Pinto, because he has a spotted dick.
By the way, a very, very good English dessert.
Yes. Chris, this is a very, very good English dessert.
I just got it set.
In any case, so the part of Bluto was written for John Belushi. The part of D-Day was written for Dan Aykroyd, who they knew from Second City. The part of there were like 3 or 4 written for specific people.
Otter
was written for Chevy Chase. And it's a long story, but basically John was the only one we got of that group. And it was the first or second year of Saturday Night Live. Second year. So it was not a huge numbers show, but it had huge cachet, and it was unbelievably hit. The third year is when it went off. And John, it was written for him. He was upset with me because I loved him, by the way, and we worked very well together. But I took out a lot of his dialogue because I saw very quickly that physically he was so extraordinary he could communicate with his face. You could read, very much like Stan Laurel, you could actually read his thoughts, almost like sometimes. And John, I'm not disappointed. I loved him, and I think he steals the movie. That Doug Kenny said, you're a screenwriter. Doug Kenny said one of the great things about the movie process, but he was talking about his experience on Animal House, which, by the way, I think it was the best time of his life up there. He had a wonderful time. But he said that for a long time, Animal House was his and Harold's. And then it became his and Harold's and Chris's. And it was their Animal House. And then suddenly there's this guy, John Landis, and it's his Animal House. And for like a year, but when it came out, it was John Belushi's Animal House. So it's movies are collaborative. But I was thrilled with John.
How much of his physical stuff was scripted and how much was just Belushi being Belushi?
I'll repeat that for the back so that people can hear it. The question was, how much of his physical stuff was scripted and how much was just Belushi being Belushi?
I don't think any of it was scripted.
You're right.
None of it was scripted. I mean, his scenes are scripted, his dialogue is scripted, but we made all that stuff up. There's a gag in this movie that it always upset me because I thought people didn't get it.
No.
And so I would ask people if they got it, and it was about 20%, which is when there's a scene that is shameless. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, it's like, where he climbs on this ladder, looks in on these topless girls, as they do, have pillow fights. So I thought, what the fuck? I mean, this is so shameless and bad. And what do I do? And how do I? And one of the things about John that he did so brilliantly was, as written, Bluto was just a pig, This is her line. As Babs says,
It was a P-I-G pig.
Well done.
Anyway, but what he did, I said, you are Harpo or the Cookie Monster. And what they share is just they're all appetite, they're totally destructive, and they're sweet. And John manages to do that. And as gross and outrageous as he's being, he's sweet. And so, what the fuck? The physical stuff. So there's a gag in there. He climbs up the ladder, and he looks in the window, and I'm thinking, this is inexcusable. And I realized, I'll just have John make, and he just did it so brilliantly, understood. He just turns, he breaks the floor, he looks at you, and he makes everyone in the house a co-conspirator. And the other thing is, but how do I get him out of there? So when Mandy starts, what it said in the script, and the reason it was so hard to cast Mandy, is it said she takes off her bra, she fondles her breast, slips her hands into her panties, and begins to masturbate.
Right. That's what it said.
Which is why a lot of actresses said, "Fuck you." But you learn as you're in the business longer that when you have screenplays, you don't write incredibly unattractive woman because no one's going to come in and read. Anyway, so a really hunchback, ugly man, you don't get a lot of guys going, "That's me, I want that part." Anyway, so what he does is, I hope I took the curse out of that, but he goes away from the wall and falls. I didn't realize until much later that most people just accepted it and didn't know why that happened. So how many people understand the gag? Why did that happen?
That's smart.
About a third of the audience. Isn't that interesting? But they still laughed. Sir.
Sir, born and raised in Chicago, thank you for Blues Brothers.
You're welcome.
Question is the soundtrack. I love the soundtrack. Oh, it's almost bordering on a musical, So who came up with the soundtrack of...
It is a musical.
We're talking about Blues Brothers?
Yeah. Borderline a musical. Who came up with what?
The soundtrack or that?
The soundtrack, the music to the movie, the Animal House.
Oh, to Animal House.
Lucy in the background, or the back,
Okay,
the questions
Animal
about the
House.
music in Animal House.
The end credit song and one of the songs playing, one or two of the songs playing on radios were written by Stevie Bishop. But the score is by Elmer Bernstein. And the score is probably the most influential thing from the movie. Because motion picture comedies had been scored up to that time with what are called, they're Mickey Mouse, they're the comedic scores. A very good example would be the brilliant Henry Mancini on the Pink Panther.
Yeah.
You listen to that music and it's telling you, this is funny, it's like, wow. I mean, it's telling you, and you Mickey Mouse it, and that was what was done. And I felt strongly that if you scored it dramatically, it would be funnier. If you just, you get good actors and you play everything, it's like, that's, then the Zucker, we did that in Kentucky Fried, and Abrams and Zucker and Abrams did that in Airplane. You get real actors playing straight, these ridiculous things, and it's funny. So I asked Elmer Bernstein to score it, and this is the thing. What was the guy's name, the head of the music department?
Right, that guy.
It wasn't
Harry, yeah.
It wasn't Harry Garfield. That was the Blues Brothers. On Animal House was a different guy.
Yeah, right.
Who was an asshole. And his executive, he said, "Who do you
We're
want?"
just kidding, you two.
Why not? He said, "Who do you want to score the picture?" And I said, "I went to school with Peter Bernstein, so I knew Elmer when I was a kid." And I said, "Elmer Bernstein," and he said, "He won't return your call." I felt like 8 going, "Oh yeah." Anyway, so I called Elmer and he came in and watched the movie and said, "It's very funny. Why do you have me here?" And I explained what I wanted him to do, and he did it brilliantly. I mean, the movie is essentially scored as a dramatic picture would have been in 1962. There are obvious, like when he vamps during Bluto's speech, and there's things, but, and that's become the style. And poor Elmer, this guy had been typed as the Ten Commandments. He did huge movies. Then he did dramas like To Kill a Mockingbird. And then he did the jazz scores like Sweet Smell of Success and Walk on the Wild Side, and gosh, so many movies. And then he became the Western guy when he scored The Magnificent Seven. He did 10 John Wayne movies. I mean, you get typed as in everything you do in the movie you get typed, and he got typed many times. But after Animal House, in very short succession, within 10 years, he'd done Airplane, Ghostbusters, Trading Places, Three Amigos, you know, I mean, what else? I mean,
Stripes,
I mean, Meatball. I mean, he just did like the biggest comedies of all time, to the point where he said, "Fuck this! I don't want to do another comedy." You know, he was in his late 60s, early 70s, so he just stopped. And then Marty Scorsese called him for Cape Fear, wanted because Elmer was very close to Bernard Herrmann, and he wanted him to recreate and extend it. And then he did The Age of Innocence. So, and then he did what the hell is that? Far From Heaven. And then he
But one other thing, but I think there is a continuity between Verna Bloom, John Vernon, and Elmer Bernstein, all as part of Animal House. That these were people who had a gravitas and a deep skill, and that you wouldn't have thought belonged in this uproarious, rebellious comedy. And to John's credit, and to all of them, they all totally found a place and belonged there.
Yeah.
John Vernon was the only one. I mean, everybody had a good time making the movie and stuff, and it was fun, and it was really good. John was the only one. He came to me several times, but after about 10 days up in Oregon, he said, took me aside and said, "John, you had this incredibly deep voice. You know, we're doing something important here." And I'm like, "It's cold, John. Go on your trip." And he says, no, he was serious, and he was telling me, "I don't think you understand what this script is. I don't think you understand how important this is." I mean, he was very serious. And he said, "I don't think you understand the success this is going to be." And I'm thinking, yeah, thanks. But he was totally, but it's so interesting because he literally is the only person who ever said anything like that. Surprised.
Well, I was curious, Sean, from the studio's point of view, when did you guys know you had something? I mean, when the dailies were coming in, or when you had screenings? I mean,
two things. One, I was in the studio, treated me not that well, and
Does that mean Sean?
yeah, Sean, what an asshole. No, no, but Sean got lots of abuse.
That's true.
From the Blue Wasserman and those
That was
guys.
his job.
Yeah. But what is true is that the DGA says that I'm supposed to have my own either dressing room or trailer or private space. They didn't give me one because they thought, he doesn't know. It's true, I had to join the union to get that job. And actually, I got the job, and like 2 days before I left, Marsh Green said, "You're not the DGA." I know. Oh shit, come here. The only two directors actually shooting on the lot were George Roy Hill and Jeremy Kagan.
Right.
So like we went on their stages, and the head of production goes, "George, sign this." So they signed my card. But I didn't get the dressing room, and I'm supposed to be able to have access to my dailies. We were 30 days in Oregon. We got the dailies on day 28. By that time, there were several hours worth. But Sean and the executives were seeing the dailies every day with George Folsey, my editor. And I would call George, and I would say, and this went on for days. I would say, "You see the dailies?" "Yes." And George would say, "They're great, they're fine." Well, I mean, are they funny? Oh, yeah. Am I getting the coverage? Absolutely. Do you like the dailies, George? Tell me about the dailies. How's it look? Looks good. Man, I'm still, that went on for like, ah! But he can tell you the story of the executive dailies, and then I'll give it to you.
Well, the interesting thing about the making of Animal House at Universal was that for the longest time going into the production of the film, the studio really, except for our boss, who tortured us, but at the same time backed us and gave us the money. The script and the project was just viewed as an utter embarrassment. But then the dailies started to come back from Eugene, Oregon. And they were spectacular. And initially, at 2:30 every afternoon, I'd go to dailies, and me and the head of post-production and George Folsey, John's editor, and we would sit there and watch the dailies. And then the word got out that, wait, this is actually, something's happening up there. And more people started to show up. And so by the end of the shoot, the dailies were really crowded. And people were loving
they wouldn't
them.
send them to me.
But I want to make a point that the people who came to the dailies really knew who Verna was. They knew who Verna Bloom was. And they were like, this is the funniest thing. I mean, I can't believe that this actress from Clint Eastwood and everything else is doing this. And it really resonated. And the dailies got us a lot of goodwill because they were so good. And Verna and John Vernon and everybody were so strong and funny or exact in their performances that the whole studio began to realize, oh, wait a second, this thing we thought was just disreputable and disgusting, and how could we put our name on it? This is actually looking good.
No, but you asked when did we know? There was a preview, a famous preview in Denver, Colorado, where with Lou Wasserman, it's at Scheinberg and then Tan, and it was extraordinary. It's to this day the most amazing reaction I've ever. We learned later it was not playing. Half the audience was there was a fraternity convention. It was like half the audience. But do you remember major studio previews? I missed those. That's where you went out of town, or it would just say that on the marquee, and you knew you'd see whatever the picture playing there was, and some new movie. And that's how you used to test movies. Now it's all market research, and it's horrible. But then you went and felt it in the audience. And the audience reaction was so incredible that everything changed.
That's true.
I mean, everything changed. We literally went from war criminals to heroes.
I have something about Verna I'd like to share from another cast member, actually.
Oh.
If I could. From Karen Allen, who I was in contact with, and I unfortunately didn't really work with Verna, so my memory of her, I just got to bring this one up, was the scene on the phone where John Vernon is on the phone and she's come back from her night of revelry. And while you're shooting, and she does that amazing drunken delirium laughter and falls on the floor.
That amazing fall.
You said cut, and she kept laughing, and I was standing on. There was one time I was on stage when she was working, and she just kept she kept that scene going so real. She was just wonderful. So Karen said this, okay? She said, my favorite Verna story took place the last day of our shoot in Animal House. We were finishing up bits and pieces of the parade scene. I'd just finished my last scene in the film, and there were literally cars lined up waiting to take each actor to the airport right after you finished shooting. This was my first film. I had such a great month with the cast and crew. I was teary-eyed and saying goodbye to everyone. Verna came over to me, threw her arms around me, and said, remember this moment. A few years from now, you won't believe how happy you'll be when a film wraps and you can go home. We had a great laugh about it. Somebody snapped a photo of us hugging and laughing, sent it to me in New York. I framed it. I have it at my house. All these years, and I look at it often with greatest affection for Verna's warmth, humor, and kindness. And of course, she was right. There are some films where I literally count the days. She invited me to her and Jay's lovely New York apartment several times for dinner. And I remember she was the most wonderful cook and hostess. I wish I could be here with you to celebrate her life tonight. She was a wonderful woman.
I'm getting the signal that we're out of time. I think that's actually a lovely note to end on. Beautiful. So thank you all for coming and sharing your memories of Verna every week.